Welcome to Seeing This. I'm Mike Ornelas, and I have a very special guest, director Gabe Polsky, whose new documentary, The Man Who Saves the World, is sending shockwaves across theaters and examines the life of Patrick McCollum, who finds himself in the middle of a prophecy uniting the Indigenous Tribes of the Americas and spreading peace around the world. But is this, in fact, what a prophecy looked like? Gabe Polsky, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here with you.
Congratulations on the film. Quite an experience, to say the least, when I got to see the film. You and Patrick have been traveling across the country to screen your documentary. And firstly, how are you guys holding up? And how has the reception of the film been?
We're doing pretty well. There are days where you get just exhausted and think about how are you going to sustain this? Because for independent films, traveling around and connecting with audiences directly is like a big thing to help build the audience for the film and then get people to spread it word of mouth. But so it's important that we do this. But there are days like last night, actually, I was on my way to Encinitas, which is a cool market, and Patrick was there, and I got like a migraine on like right as I started going, and I ended up I just didn't think it would be a good idea because sometimes I get sick when I have a migraine, and it was like a 3 hour drive. It was very hot in LA last week. Anyways, we made it work though. So we're and Patrick obviously 75 with his bad knee and this and that. I worry about him and try and take care of him, but he's doing good. I mean, he's really energized by how the how the film is playing, and I'm surprised actually how he's able to sit through these screenings all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. And you guys have spent some time now together, since the inception of the project to this point. But prior to embarking on this project, did you personally have any kind of religious or spiritual beliefs going into this journey? And has the introduction of Patrick kind of brought an evolution of those said beliefs?
That's a great question. I have always, I think since I was probably fit 14, I was introduced by a teacher to sort of Buddhist thought, and that I was never really I grew up I'm Jewish, but went to I never connected to in Hebrew school or anything like that. I didn't really like it. I couldn't relate to it that much. Buddhism, I started getting more and more into it, and then I in fact have come actually back to Judaism a little bit, just because the more mystical quality of it, because of actually this experience with Patrick with the movie and all that. But um I'm generally very curious about what we're doing here, why we're here, reality, what is all this? It's like a very I think it's the question of life. What the if
Sure.
how can you move forward in life doing things if you don't have any clear sense of why we're supposed to be doing anything or
Right.
doing, you know what I'm saying? So that really helps with purpose and deeper understanding. I've been on kind of that search for a while now. I'm not that's all I think about. I don't do anything else. I mean, it's always in the back of my mind, and I think for me it's like the fundamental importance, because if you can't answer that, how do you have purpose? And also, where are we going after
Mm,
this life? Are we That's also important in terms of determining how you live your life. Um and so when I got the opportunity to kind of step into this film, it was honestly more the spiritual side of it that kept me going and kept me interested here. The idea of obviously prophecies and believing in sort of these unseen things, which it's hard to believe them if you don't experience them firsthand. How do you do that? And can you really do that? I have a hard time unless I can't really believe people until I feel it, believe it, experience it, understand it. I'm not going to just like walk along and believe everything I hear.
right.
So that was kind of a metaphor also of this journey, how I went along, sort of open minded, but also like skeptical.
Absolutely. I mean, your documentary is filled with profound thought like that, and profound moments. And one thing that makes this film and Patrick so compelling is that he seems quite ordinary on the surface, but has aspects of his life that are quite extraordinary. I mean, building his own house and kind of the visualization of that. He's what I'd call, just left of normal, quote unquote. But when you first met Patrick, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, kinda like what you just said, in that, there is a sense that he's just kind of like this regular guy. His life is really messy. It's not very organized, but at the same time, he's done all these like incredible things and knows how to do so many things. You wonder, how does a guy have enough time to learn how to do all these things? Um, and also kind of step into it, right? Step into things that he might not know how to do, but then just tries to figure things out. And so all of those kinds of things were really inspiring. And then he's a man who sort of collects these unbelievable stories one after the other. And you sit with him for 2 hours, you've heard like the best stories you've ever heard. And that's just like a tiny tip of the iceberg
All
of this
right.
guy's life. He's like Forrest Gump, but actually like
On a
not slow
spiritual
or
level,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you yourself become a character in the documentary, as you mentioned, kind of representing the skeptic observer. And on a larger scale, based on the themes of the documentary, you're playing a role in fulfilling the prophecy as well. What are your thoughts around that notion? And have you had a moment to really kind of reflect on that, considering you're still in the process of sharing the film?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think by nature, if the prophecy's real and it's happening, it's unfolding, then I'm clearly a part of it. Maybe a big part because it's the message the film's delivering to
Hmm.
people. It's what they wanted to begin with, was their wisdom and information about this out there. So whether it's reluctantly or not, I am a part of it. It's a little weird to say that I have a role to play in the prophecy, but the interesting part is that we all will have a role to play here. As Patrick says, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. There's not one piece that's can be missing here, and we're all
Right.
a part of it. And even when I went down there, and these indigenous people, really sacred people, were saying to me all the time that I'm a messenger, that it's important that I do this. I mean, sometimes I thought they might be telling this to everybody. And I also, I don't I think it's like a way to jinx yourself if you say that I did this or I'm part of
Hmm.
this. And it's like weird and not very humble. It sounds pretentious and sort of strange. But, part of me is sort of learning now to kind of not put myself down or think that I'm not, I don't know, it's like some habitual conditioning that I've done to myself. But I'm learning to be more kind of open to that and just say it as it is and not, you know, question everything all the time. It's part of my nature. I don't know. It's
Right.
maybe Jewish nature or something.
I was fortunate enough to see the screening at Cinema 21 here in Portland. Shout out to Cinema 21, and
Yeah.
appreciate the time that you and Patrick take to do these Q&As after the film. And I'm curious, is there a certain question you're finding being kind of consistent coming up during your screening, or on the flip side, a unique question that has stuck with you?
I think that we've started to kind of dig in a little bit on this idea of like what is being crazy, and sort of mental health, and how, if you believe a story that isn't the norm or seems to be outlier, then you could kind of be put in a dangerous place. Like, you could be called crazy or institutionalized. Where if you bring these indigenous people to the United States and they start talking about spirits and all these things and forces and time, and they'd probably be questioned and maybe put in a mental hospital. But that's like
Sure.
normal in their culture to do that. And they I guess, connect to these forces and can see them and whatever. So, it's this thing about sort of this fine line about either the way our culture is, we don't really accept these kind of outlier stories that actually these other people might be connecting better to these unseen forces and to the earth and so on, and we need to really think about that and and maybe try and open ourselves up to different kinds of stories that are just as valid as the
Hmm.
story we believe in, kind of Western science oriented thinking, linear thinking, but it's just theories. We're just believing in a story, and if you fall outside of that, if you don't believe in the story that our culture believes in, then you'll be ostracized and bad things will happen.
And I think it's so ironic because I think that exact thing is kind of what ties us together, whether it be,
Yeah,
humanity or even your own individual religious groups. It's the profound or the unexplainable that we all feel something with.
yeah,
Something that sticks out as an obvious quote unquote issue is that Patrick is a white man and he
yeah.
believes he is chosen to unite the indigenous tribes of the Americas. And I appreciate that you actually bring that up in the documentary, that this may be something that he's experiencing. Can you expand a little bit on the nuance of the white savior complex and this specific dynamic in the film? And is there any validity to that in regards to who can make an impact?
Yeah, well, I think anytime, a white guy's helping out, trying to help out kind of indigenous people or people of color, it now comes across as, dangerous or whatever, and for all valid reasons. Patrick never he says all the time in these Q&As that he never really wanted to do this or was looking to do this. These indigenous leaders came to him and said, we believe you're this guy that needs to come, and you're in our prophecy, and he even says that he didn't believe it and didn't really want to fulfill the prophecy for many years until they kept coming to him and saying, when are you going to come down? When are you going to do this? And so
Hmm.
ultimately he ended up saying, okay, I'll come and try and do this, step into it. And so I think that's important context there, that one. Um, Other than that, it's like either you do something to help the planet or you don't, and this
Hmm.
guy's just basically spending his time and money trying to make a positive impact on the world, and if it means, you know, uniting indigenous people or there's so many ways to be of service, and he's just essentially that's all he's trying to do. He doesn't like, obviously nobody wants to use the word savior, that's a word put onto this,
Right.
and I did put it in the title of the film. It's a little bit of a, what's the word, I don't want to say false advertising or whatever, but it's a marketing thing, right? The
Hmm.
man who saves the world. It is true in a sense that if the Amazon goes down, the earth will be horrible, in a terrible place, and there'll be a lot of people who die and so on. And so in effect, he does have a role to play in saving the world. So do you and I.
Right, right. And I think the punctuation at the end of the title with the
Yeah,
question mark really carries a lot of weight for multiple reasons in that regard.
yeah.
Um,
But in
has
the
this?
film, there's a lot of sensitivity. Obviously, you see that one scene where the indigenous leader, talks about the past and how colonizers came and
Mhm.
did everything bad to them. You know what I'm saying? And we do. That's kind of clear in the film.
Has, because I mean I can only imagine again, specifically on a spiritual level, if you're involved in this from the director or a viewer, it impacts you in one way or in another. Do you feel that this has kind of shaped how you'll move forward in your own career as far as the type of material you work on, or at least the influence on how you approach it?
Well, that's a great question. I I haven't really done a film like this. That a lot of the I've done all kinds of different things, but I haven't done anything quite like this. This was definitely, but what it did bring out was a deeper um part of my voice, and kind of
Mm,
allowed me to it was more personal. Even I was actually in the film, and my sense of humor was let out a little more, although it wasn't like a straight up comedy. We have big comedy people involved. That was afterwards, but yeah, I'm more and more kind of drawn to spiritually related things. I don't know if I know I'm gonna continue personally down that road and sort of go as deep as
mm,
I can, and will always be kind of trying to understand and connect better and so on. It's turned to my work. Yeah, it'll only improve my work, because I feel like the deeper a work is, the more it impacts the connection, the soul. The problem with a lot of films is that they just don't have that personal, that soul inside of it, that deepness. That is what makes a great film. And so if you have these experiences and these deeper understanding, you can express things much more profoundly. And if I could do that, that's great. And yeah, so I don't know, but I don't know. Sometimes, and I'm sure every filmmaker thinks this, but is this the only expression that I have is in film, or are there other ways I can express myself? And I think about that too. I think, how many films do I need to make? What am I trying to prove? What am I trying to express? And do I have to keep making films the rest of my life, or what about? Yeah, I don't know. Like, is that the only thing
right.
that I'm here to do? That's what. So I sort of think about these things.
Well, it sounds like if anything, it's now anchored into your spirit, and maybe subconsciously or unconsciously, it'll come through in your work and in whatever path you decide to
Yeah.
go in. Just a couple more questions for you. You've been very gracious with your time. If people could take away one thing from your film, what do you hope that they take?
Let me kind of redirect this back to you. I mean,
Sure.
with films, is that what the purpose of making a film is to have people take something with them away, or is it to
Mm,
that, like, one particular thing, or some message that they just keep with them? Or when you watch a great film, do you have one thing that you take away, or is it just like this feeling, this kind of vibe, and the questions that it leaves you with, and just like this connection to it? I
yeah.
want to ask you that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think on a high level, great films inspire something internally, whether that's thought, whether that's emotion, whether that's philosophical exploration. I think you make a valid point that it isn't a singular thing. I think some films might have one moment that they remember. But as far as like the impact of the film, specifically this film, I ended up going down a rabbit hole and just educating myself more on these indigenous tribes and the history of colonization, and kind of just what has gotten these people to where they are now, and how um to kind of the theme of the film is that we're all, and I think even Jane Goodall, who appears on the documentary, says we're a tapestry of humanity. So I think with this film specifically, it did inspire exploration, to further understand these people, where Patrick's coming from, where you as a filmmaker is coming from. So I think it just inspires something in people, whether, like I said, to explore further, to feel something, to reach out to their parents, to reach out to that person that is left of normal that they know in their lives. I think it can do a lot of different things. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll just say that I think that when people maybe watch the film, my hope is that they connect to how it's difficult to step into a story, into the unknown, and then, like, the world is very kinda confusing as it is now. You
Mhm.
know, we're walking around, we just see all kinds of strange things happening around us, and we're trying to make sense of everything, and I feel like this story is a metaphor for that, where I'm just sort of, like, trying to figure things out, not in an investigative way, but trying to
Mm,
kinda connect and understand, and it's so confusing, and it's overwhelming, and
absolutely.
trying to make my own decision about life and have a journey and stepping into the unknown. So if people can relate to that and just be like, yeah, that guy kind of like nailed that vibe, you know, I totally was there, you know, I
Yeah,
feel that,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I love that. Absolutely. One last question for you that I like to ask everyone at the end of our interviews is there a underseen film or documentary that you would like to recommend to people to check out?
Nothing's coming to my mind right now, but I think that just a great question because our industry is so messed up.
Yeah.
Uh, it's you know, and I was watching some strange things and an algorithm popped up. Bob Dylan was saying that like most of the artists that he like loves or whatever, they don't become famous or
Yeah.
you know, they all the things. It's just a hype machine, you know. So the things that get out there get all this exposure, most of the time aren't even the best things, and people don't know about the other things. So it is just like some strange fact about our world and different aspects, but particularly art. And it's
Yeah.
important to spread the word about the other things, you know. So let me think about that.
Yeah.
I
No,
wish that the underground of it all. It's hard to do all the work. We're all so busy, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something that's become very true to me. Specifically, this year, I got to go to Toronto for the film festival, and some of my favorite films out of that film festival are ones that may not get a wide release. They're
Yeah,
international films that may not get the marketing machine to back them up to get this wide release. And I
yeah,
mean, even the inclusion of your film, you know, it's something that I hope that we can rely again, and I think it's still a powerful
yeah,
tool of the word of mouth because there's so much more reliance in that than
yeah.
a,
I
a
know.
quick excerpt on a marketing campaign. So
Or
totally understand
film
that.
festival or all that. It's just I think we have to ask ourselves, you know, who's determining what sort of gets that
Yeah.
visibility, you know? It's so strange, you know? It's so strange.
It's such an important question now more
I
than ever.
know.
I think
I know. It's
it
so important because it's our culture. It's everything. You know, we don't have time to do the search, the deep dive about what is good, and then these things are getting picked and so on. So we know the directors, the obvious ones like Yorgos Lanthimos,
sure.
who is actually getting he seeped through. He's super creative, but he got through and gets that major distribution. I haven't seen his latest one.
Hmm.
I liked Sacred Deer. That didn't get as much attention. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty bizarre and interesting. Yeah.
I think that might be one of my favorites of his, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
for that reason, it is very different and unique. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have to think about that though, the other ones.
No worries. That's a good one in itself. And I think the messaging around these underground or unknown films and the importance of spreading it. I mean, to be quite honest, part of the reason we do our podcast is to highlight these movies or these filmmakers and hopefully be a part of that word of mouth that spark people's interest to and their intrigue to check it out. So with that, thank you so much for talking with me here today. I really
Thank you.
genuinely enjoyed your film. I think it's something everyone should see. The Man Who Saves the World is the documentary. The filmmaker is Gabe Polsky. Where's your next steps? If your next stops, I should say, for the screening tour, so people can
Yeah,
have a
so
lookout.
first of all the screenings will be on themanwhosavestheworld.com. So, it's being released nationally in theaters, which is unusual for a doc, but we're going about it slowly, and we'll be in we'll be we'll be in a bunch of regals, and then we're going to Chicago, then Minneapolis, Madison, and Charleston, and just a lot of different cities. Yeah, so we'll be kind of getting around, and it'll be a long run. We're gonna probably be around at least for the next 4 or 5 months. But yeah, if it's in your city, you'll have to check the website to see where it's playing.
themanwhosavestheworld.com. Gabe Polsky, thank you so much for your time and for your film.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good one.